RPG Maker games have seen a lot of growth recently. Their style has been popularized, and the demand for them continues to increase. The RPG Maker game style is characterized by artistic and creative freedom. They're quirky games with art styles and stories that don't exist in mainstream medium. I've always enjoyed these kind of games. Games with an innate eccentricity have a natural attraction for me. Games like Undertale, Unsighted, One Shot, and Everhood, all of these titles and more feature ideas unique to themselves. They can have innovative gameplay, one-of-a-kind gimmicks, or narratives too gruff for the mainstream audience. I say all this to bring context to Omori. This JRPG Maker game takes full advantage of its indie background and features both a distinct art style and a story few, indie or not, would be bold enough to tackle. Omori's art style is already tricky and rare in the market. It has a hand-drawn aesthetic throughout the game's entirety. But the most shocking part of Omori is its design choices and suggestive content. Omori features design contrast and cohesion perfectly. If elements of Omori don't work together, they stand obviously apart. Every part of Omori complements itself through cohesive or contrasting design. The contrast of Omori is starkest with its two most dominant tones, endearing and traumatic. Omori isn't afraid to whiplash its audience with sudden tonal shifts. The game can go from sweet and cozy to a psychological horror game in a flash. Now before we begin, there are two warnings I want to advise. 1. Viewer discretion is advised. The suggestive and difficult themes of Omori are on the screen. At best, this game is emotionally draining, and at worst, well, I'd want you to save y'all's mental health than risk it over a video game. 2. Omori is a game with a lot of mystery. I played it blind, I didn't watch any trailers, I read no reviews, and I only took the raw recommendations from my peers to play it without any context. And that's how the game is best enjoyed. This video is going to have spoilers, it's unavoidable. And with each section, I'll be diving even deeper into the game's lore and unraveling the story more and more as we progress. So pause the video at each chapter screen to decide if you want to play the game for yourself before continuing, or stop watching now. It won't hurt my feelings as long as you promise to play the game instead. To start, let's address the neutral elements of Omori. I'll quickly contextualize Omori with a story synopsis. The main character is Sunny, and the player will follow his journey in both his dreams and in the real world. In his dreams, you'll be exploring his headspace as Omori, which is a concept of himself. Sunny will adventure in both realms and a story of self-discovery and try to reconnect with his friends. Omori has a solid hook filled with mystery, charm, and clear motivations that are shared between the protagonist and player. The gameplay of Omori ties neatly into the other elements of the game. Gameplay is a group of systems that all focus on cohesive design. For example, 1. Combat has thematic symbolism. 2. Exploration allows the audience to better sympathize with Sunny, and so on. Those are cryptic examples, but I'll explain them further once I get to the point where I can provide context. To begin with combat, it boils down to a basic turn-based role-playing game. Turn order is determined by an individual's speed, and each participant attacks once per round. All orders are issued before the round, and turn orders can change with stat changes. Party members' special actions can break the game flow, draining the friendship bar in the process. The bar fills when party members take or deal damage, and if the bar fills up to 10, it allows Omori's super option to be selected. The super option releases an overpowered team attack. Think Persona's all-out attack. There's also the emotion gimmick system. Characters can feel one of 3 emotions, happy, sad, and angry, and emotions can have 2 unique elements. First, they apply stat changes, and second, they have a rock, paper, scissors mechanic. The emotion chart displays an emotion being stronger against one and weaker against another. Characters can also become a secondary or tertiary level of emotion. For example, happy makes a character more likely to critical hit, but less likely to hit in general. A happy character will do more damage to an angry enemy, but do less damage to a sad enemy. Furthermore, you can make someone ecstatic, the next level of happy. When ecstatic, a character will miss even more and hit critical attacks more than before. There's an underlying message here that through friendship and mastery of emotions, adversity can be overcome. It's pretty obvious, but I'm glad something as simple as turn-based RPG combat has a purpose in the game's story. Exploration has a similar relationship with the writing. Sunny uses Omori as a shield, and he idolizes that side of him. Even more so does Sunny idolize his headspace. Sunny's comfort can be explained with 2 main ideas. First, that headspace is a cozy and friendly place without judgment. Second, it has enough depth and scope to be real. Exploration is clever because it adds to the scope and motivates the player to delve into the world. The extra paths off the main road reward the player. They don't just add to the enormity of the world, but have a good purpose for the player to explore. Each optional path offers something and usually ends or routes back to the main road. It's hard to get lost when every road points to the intended one. However, my favorite part of exploration is the motivations for it. At the end of the roads less traveled are rewards. These can be stat buffs, consumables, side quests, gear, or short events. The most rewarding is optional story content hidden on these extra trails. It's an odd approach hiding key content in a story-heavy game, but Omori has a reason for this approach. Thoughts and memories Sunny has repressed are challenging to find in the headspace. The optional ones are no different and are exceptionally rewarding with quality contributions to the narrative. I even discussed with friends about a few well-hidden ones they missed out on. Needless to say, they were some of my favorite segments in the game. Exploration contributes to Sunny's desire to hide in headspace. Omori didn't make me feel lost. It gave me a sense of wonderlust as I roamed its fantastic world. It was easy to understand how Sunny retreated to headspace and didn't get bored of it after years of hiding there. Player interaction holds purpose because of the direct narrative consequences of player choices. While exploring and on the main road, the player has many opportunities to interact with the game. Whether this is in subtle decisions like watering baseless flowers every day, or with obvious ones like questions with direct choices for the player. These instances can have long-lasting effects or short payoffs like the picnic events with your friends, while the direst of choices directly affect the endings of the game. The exploration and player interaction in Headspace add to the immersion of the setting, the idea of its reality. This assists the player in sympathizing with Sunny's desire to retreat into a comfortable and believable fantasy while being enjoyable for the player. It's wonderful. To continue, Omori also features heartwarming segments. These will help tackle the darker and more horror-like moments throughout the game. Pairing these together allows a shocking story to be accessible by offering the player chapters of respite. These chapters feature long-winded segments and headspace. They happen alongside pastel-colored worlds and an incredibly supportive cast. The design of Headspace is naturally comforting. It's the method Sunny has been using to escape reality. This world's attraction comes from its use of bright pastels, fantastical settings, and characters, and its larger-than-life approach. There are more quirky ideas and characters in Headspace than in most any games. It also features a variety of areas and set pieces to explore. There are some generic areas and some really out-of-the-box ones. Overall, it's a great and unique mind we're exploring, and I love it. Headspace is made to contrast with the real world. While the real world is desaturated and grounded, Headspace is the opposite. Alongside the cozier world is a highly supportive cast. The core friend group in Headspace mirrors their younger selves and is directly inspired by Sunny's best memories. They're full of life and energy, and 100% on Sunny's side. The whole cast attire is that of a slumber party. Each of them is full of color, and they exude this childish energy. This is further rehearsed in their personalities and interactions. Kel and Aubrey argue with each other all the time, but always will support Sunny. Hiro acts as the negotiator and the big brother of the group. Aubrey will fawn over Sunny in memory of her crush as a child on Sunny, and Kel is a loud, rowdy, lovable dork. They all have their own issues, feel real, but their fallback reaction is to support Sunny. It's a reasonably clever setup for protagonists. I'm used to the trope of everybody loves the main character in anime, but there's a reason behind it in Omori. The Headspace cast adores him because that's his coping mechanism and perception of that time in his life. After all, it's his mind, why shouldn't he be loved? And to continue, the music also adds to the atmosphere. There's plenty of variety in the OST, but there's a majority of upbeat tracks. Whether lullabies or just general jams, it's enjoyable and relaxing. To sample a few, Lost at Sleepover, Let's Get Together Now, By Your Side, even the after battle track is pleasant. So How'd We Do? Over half the game is dominated by good vibes. Even the story's main themes and parts of the combat follow this trend. There are themes associated with friendship, truth, and perseverance. We can see friendship throughout the game. Narratively, Sunny's friends motivate him in both worlds. They push him to overcome his fears, which also applies to the theme of perseverance. And the through friendship we can always win message I mentioned earlier in combat also comes up. The central conflict is reconnecting with old friends, and specifically Basil. You can see the
themes of truth and perseverance and
Before tackling what's creeping below the surface of this game, I want to bring it to attention the real world. The game does not take place solely in Sunny's head. Sunny has been locked away in his house, he's been trapped there, living in Headspace, avoiding the world since the events that Headspace is mostly based on. The good memories of that summer are the bulk of the sources of Headspace's material. Sunny is out of contact with his friends, and he hasn't left his house because of something. He's repressed whatever is torturing him and buried it so much that he's effectively shut down. That's until the events of the game. With only a few days before Sunny and his family move, he hears a knock on the door. A choice is presented, and Sunny opens the door with great effort. Then Kel and Sunny spend the next few days reconnecting with friends. The shiny gloss of Headspace isn't here to hide reality. The park is worn down and nowhere near as pretty as the fictional one in his head. His friends have all grown up, and for a while, it's just Kel and Sunny. The player will meet up with the rest of the cast, but they've changed. Everyone's no longer who they were because of one incident, and to rip the band-aid off, Omori is about Sunny's trauma over his sister's death. While everyone acknowledges this, Sunny is a stranger to this memory. While he knows Mary is gone, he cannot recall his personal memories of her death. This, while in the search for Basil and Headspace, drive him deeper and deeper into his mind to push through the painful history and attempt to find closure. Sunny does all of this in his dreams, in his cognitive palace, while the rest of the cast tackles trauma in their own ways, whether by diving into sports or studies, or by becoming a recluse. Perhaps they found new friends. Regardless, reality is a cruel and rude awakening for Sunny and the player, but it adds so much to the story for all of its negative aspects. Addressing how trauma isn't just an individual thing, but is shared among peers and handled uniquely between them is a valuable message. The real world also acts as a driving force in Headspace. To dive where his subconscious doesn't want to go, he needs a push, and the events in the waking world achieve that. His drive to reconnect with his best friends drives him to the truth. I'd like to say that the story has a happy ending, but that's up to your choices, because from here on out, it's only going to get much harder to persevere, or even overcome. Omori has this habit. With each reveal, it manages to create a twist. Even when predictable, it encourages mystery. It starts wanting to get to the root of all, but when it appears like the puzzle is concluding, it adds an extra 100 pieces. The corner pieces of the puzzle aren't revealed until the end. Every second of Omori, whether in Headspace or reality, teases the player. At any second, a surprise figure can appear and taunt the player. Sunny can venture too deep or too off the path and encounter terrors long repressed. If Omori was only scary, if the material was all surface level, it would hardly have the effect it did. The horror present is that famous style I associate with Japanese psychological horror. The jump scares don't just give a quick fright, but linger in mind. Omori is impactful because it is realistic and depressing. Omori tackles issues around us and addresses how people and their minds tackle trauma. Omori is more than a great game with solid art and writing. Omori is unique because of its message. Before I jump into the writing symbolism and depressive components of Omori, let's address the fear factor. The art style, before I mention pastels, fantasy wonder-filled settings, and colorful characters. Up till now, it's all been quirky animals and comic book characters. The settings now are full of black and grays and very, very stark red. Enemies appeal to humans' natural fears, slowly progressing from a child's nightmare to the deranged scribbles of a demented man. The progression from childish to severely disturbing is a strange journey. The quality and level of fear Omori conveys steadily improves, and it's satisfying to see as a fan of things disturbing. What's even more remarkable is the symbolism hidden throughout. The monster in this horror novel is symbolic of Sunny's worst memory. It pops up everywhere in the game, especially when the player gets progressively more curious. This symbol will even change and morph into other images, allowing the monster to have a dynamic shape. It makes for some decent scares. There's also the symbolism with Omori and his knife. Omori is, in truth, the side of Sunny he uses to hide from the world. It's also his self before his cursed memory. It's his emotionless self. Omori's even named after Mary's piano, which Sunny perceives as Mary loving more than him. Omori ultimately represents Sunny's self-hate. The knife speaks for itself. Eventually, Sunny's reliance on Omori will result in his end. Sunny couldn't have been saved without friendship, the truth, and perseverance. To continue, the soundtrack of the horror scenes is effective. They provide an unnerving, shocking, tense, or dangerous feeling in all of them. Overall, they're some of the best musical pieces in the game. They are full of emotion, and the events they add back, making the music even more emotional with a second listen. All of the darker elements collide in a resounding way to make the message hit so much harder. With a twist like Omori's, the whole game has to cooperate in nailing the message. An imbalance or lack of vision for each aspect of Omori would have harmed the journey immensely. Too dark and you risk of shutting off your players or hurting them. Too light and you dampen the effect of the message. The conflict and darkness of Omori amplify its light, and, at least for the true ending, make it that much more rewarding to achieve. As much as I want to, I can't go any further. To discuss the rest of Omori, I'd have to spoil twists and turns, and eventually, even the big reveal would have to be spoiled. My videos, as are always, recommendations, and I cannot recommend a journey I ruined. I hope what I provided was enough to convince you to try this game. It's very unique, and there's almost too much to talk about to cover. While I'd love to hear your thoughts on Omori, please refrain from shouting them out in the comments. However, feel free to reach me via messaging on Twitter or Discord. Omori's whole experience was enjoyable. It's rare to see a game with little fluff and so many contrasting elements. It all worked together to make its message as impactful and accessible as possible. It would have been a much greater slog to the finale without the cozy parts, and overall, it's a unicorn. I don't expect to see or survive another journey like Omori. It was, and always will be, a unique journey I'll treasure.